Okay, today we're going to break down this, what is called a kitchen cold table. Now this is used in like the catering businesses, keeping foods cold. But as you can see, we're going to do the catering business as a service of breaking this thing down because it's all just nasty looking. I don't think anybody would be interested in purchasing this thing here. It's got its own refrigerant unit underneath there. It's got a lot of copper in there and there's some wire. So yeah, we're gonna break this down. Now I paid $5 on the hammer price on this plus a 15% fee, which come to a total of $5.75. That's what we paid for this. So let's weigh this thing up and see how much it weighs. All right, she's dangling off the ground, and it comes in at a whopping 189 pounds. Now, I don't think that's going to be all stainless steel, but that would be nice. So I paid $5.75 for that. I just think it was awkward and bulky, and nobody really wanted to mess with it, so that's probably why it didn't sell for much. But we're going to tear it apart and see if we can get $5.75. I'm sure just by the weight alone, we're doing pretty good already. But I also had another auction that I wanted to focus on today, and it was more wire. I went to an online auction and I purchased a whole bunch more wire that I need to strip down. So I'm going to try to integrate the two auctions together here. I just did a video on stripping wire down. I'm just going to try to throw this wire in between breaking this cold table down here. So here's my wire here. So let me tell you a little bit about the wire auction here. All right, so we just came back from another auction, and this was an electrical contractor that was going out of business, and all I bid on was wire. Won a lot of wire, but the bad thing is I spent on what you're seeing here, and let me just go over this here. So I've divided it all up. This is all the 10 gauge that I got, and that orange down there is 8 gauge. There's a little bit of that. And then I got some 1/0 wire there. This pile here is 12 gauge. And then this pile right here is all like communication wire, which is like $1.10 a pound. I just have to strip it down and throw it in a barrel. And then I've got some 18 gauge wire, which, you know, you can't strip that. Coaxial, and then I got a whole cart of 14 gauge, which, you know, there's a lot of wire there, and I've been stripping it down. And here's a bucket of, this was 16 gauge wire that I stripped down, and believe it or not, this is worth $88 stripped down like that. And then I started stripping the 14 gauge, and that's what I ended up with so far. So this may be one of those auctions that I didn't do so good on. This was an online auction, and it was 2 hours away from my house, so I didn't go to a preview or anything. I just bid based on the pictures. And some of this stuff right here, this communication wire, I was looking at it, and according to the pictures, I was thinking some of it might be like 12 gauge or 10 gauge. And when I get there, I find out that, you know, this 10 gauge wire that I'm thinking, it's actually just puny wire here. And, you know, they didn't show the picture like this. They just showed this. So, yeah, so I might have messed up on this one here. But we're going to find out. Got a little bit of coaxial wire here. But this has the aluminum sheeting in it. So that's just going to go right into the shred. Here's the bad news. I spent $2,100 on all this. So after getting it all back and dividing it all up, I'm not sure I'm going to make my money back. I think I might come up a couple $100 short. So we're going to have to strip all this down to find out. All right, I'm going to get busy stripping it down. I'll get back with you and show you the final numbers. So let's go ahead and get back to that cold table, and I'll revisit this wire as we're stripping it down. All right, so it's not all stainless steel. But the bottom's magnetic. So it's probably just the top that's stainless steel there. So we'll have to separate that out and separate the stainless from the steel, and got some copper in there, and we'll see what other kind of goodies we can get. All right, let's go check in and see how we're doing on the wire. She's finishing up that 14 gauge wire. How you doing, Charlotte?
Little stuff. I like the big stuff.
You like the big stuff, right? All right, so that's all we got left right there on the 14 gauge, and everything that's on that rack is 12 gauge. So we're gonna finish this up, and then we're gonna weigh the 14 gauge. Here's all the 14 gauge in this barrel here. And I mean, it's smashed down in there, and it's about 3/4 full, so a couple 100 pounds. There she goes. All right. All right. This barrel weighs 18 pounds. I weighed it earlier. I thought it was 23. But... we have 221 minus the 18. So that's 203 pounds of air bright 14 gauge wire. All right, so Charlotte's gonna go ahead and finish up on the 12 gauge, and we'll check back with her when she gets done with that, but let's go ahead and get back to the cold table. All right, that took a little work, but we got to what I was trying to get. This is the internal tub. As you can see, it's stainless steel and it's surrounded by copper tubing on the tops and the sides and on the bottom. So that's the bottom of it. So we got all that copper to recover there and the stainless steel. And then that shell is just steel and a mess of foam. All right. Take all these nuts off of here and recover that copper. All right, so before we get started on cutting this copper out here, let's check and see how Charlotte's doing on that wire. All right, so let's go ahead and weigh up the 12 gauge, see what we come up with. 102. All right, that's not too bad. 87, it's reading 87, got to take off 11 and a half or 12 pounds, so we'll say 75 pounds. 75 pounds of 12 gauge. So we'll get back to breaking down that cold table, and Charlotte's going to go ahead and do our 10 gauge wire. So we'll get back to that. All right, so I'm just going to take all these nuts off of here that's holding it on. All right, there's all the, what I thought would be number 1 copper, but that's going to be number 2 copper because it's coated with like this waxy flux or whatever it is that they put on there. And yeah, they'll downgrade that to number 2 real quick. No big deal. All right, so we still have this stainless steel tub right here. That right there is going to be just steel. Now we've got to break that down. So let's get on that. And Charlotte is done with the 10 gauge wire, so let's go ahead and weigh that up right now. That's what we ended up with, all that 10 gauge in there. Let's weigh it up and see what we come up with. All right. So we are at 120 pounds minus the 12. So we got 108 pounds 10 gauge wire. And we still got some 1/0 wire and some 8 gauge, and there's some more stuff down there. So we're getting there. All right, so I've got this pretty much broken down as far as I'm gonna go. I'm not gonna break this seal unit down. That's just too much work for one. I'll wait till I get more of them to do it. But I'm gonna go ahead and separate all this copper on all the wire. And I got some number 1 here. I've got some number 2, got some stainless, and we've got some steel, and we got some wire. So we'll go ahead and weigh all that up, and we'll get back to you and see if we didn't make $5.75 back. Okay, so I have everything completely broke down. I have a copper aluminum radiator, I've got wire, I've got a little bit of aluminum there, I've got a little bit of number 2 copper, some brass, some number 1 copper, some steel, and stainless steel. So we're gonna go ahead and weigh that up. Charlotte is finishing taking the wire off those spools for the 65% that was included in that auction, and we'll get onto that. Last one, she says. This will be the final spool right there. We'll have a grand total of what we made off of that wire versus what we paid for it. And also this cold kitchen, we paid $575 for it. And I think we're looking pretty good here. Maybe not so good on the wire. So let's go ahead and start weighing this up and get a total here. All right, I'm gonna start off with the brass. A little bit of brass here. We'll zero that out. 0.95 pounds. A little bit of aluminum. 0.65 pounds of aluminum. 1.4 pounds of wire. And the number 1 copper. So there's the copper. 1.35 pounds. Lay this copper down on here. I'll tear that out. And not too bad. So we've got 11.05 pounds of number 2 copper. All right, so we come up with 54 pounds minus 2 pounds for that bucket. So 52 pounds of stainless. right, we come up with 71 pounds of shred. Minus 2 pounds for that bucket. So 69. All right, I'll get back with you with the final results. Charlotte is done with the wire, so we'll weigh that up next. All right, so let's go over this. I forgot to weigh that copper aluminum radiator, which I included it on here. So the cost of $575, we had brass 90.95 pounds at $235, comes at $223. Aluminum 0.65 pounds at 55 cents a pound is 36 cents. The wire $1.40 or 1.4 at $1.10 comes to $1.54. Number one copper, we had 1.35 pounds at $4, and I'm going off the last prices, $4 a pound. $5.40. Number two copper was 11.05 pounds at $3.90 for $43.10. Stainless steel was 52 pounds at 30 cents for $15.60. Shred was 69 pounds at 06 cents. And it comes to $4.14. And the copper aluminum radiator, I had 1.7 pounds. That bad boy weighs 1.7 pounds. For $1.75 a pound is $2.98 for a total revenue of $75.35 off of a total cost of $575. So we did really good on that. I don't know how many times that is. You can do the math. But okay, so let's go ahead and weigh up this tub of 65%, and then we also have some low recovery, and then that will finish off that auction that we spent $2,112 on. So let's go ahead and weigh this up. All right, so this tub has low recovery wire in it, which pays 65 cents a pound if you take it to the right scrapyard, which we will this time. This tub weighs 18 pounds. So we have 34 pounds minus 18. All right, let's weigh up the 65% recovery. All right, so this is the 65% recovery wire that was on all the spools. This pays $1.10 a pound. Minus 18 pounds for the tub. Ooh, that's a good one. I thought we had a lot there. All right, so we got 197 pounds minus 18. All right, so let me get a total number on that and we will see how we did on this. I think I did a little better than we were expecting. Okay, so I have the total for this auction that I bought all that wire at. Now, that 18 gauge wire there, if you notice the price difference there, 402 versus 412, I took that last week, and then I took the rest of this stuff just this week here. So last week it was 402 a pound for Bear Bright, and that got me $88.44. But this week, I'll show you the receipt here that I just took in. So we had 203 pounds of 14 gauge at 412 for $836.36. We had 12 gauge, 75 pounds at 412 at $309. 10 gauge, we had 108 pounds at 412, and it come up with $444.96. The 8 gauge through the 1/aught wire that we had 32 pounds of it at 412 for $131.84. And we had 41 pounds of number 2 copper that came out of that at $3.90 a pound. And that was $159.90. So, and the cat wire, I had 35 pounds of cat wire at $1.28 for $44.80. And you'll see that reflected right here. The total Bear Bright, we had 418 pounds at 412. Number 2 copper, the cat wire, 35 pounds at $1.28. That's the cat wire. So this ticket paid $1,927. So subtract that 88 because that was last week's. All right, so then now Friday, I'm going to take that other wire that we just rolled off the spools there. The low recovery, 179 pounds at $1.10 was $196.90, and the low recovery, 16 pounds at 65 cents is $10.40. And that gave us a grand total. I thought we were going to be a couple $100 short, and it came out to $2,222.60. So, I mean, when you you look at all the work involved, we didn't make much money, but you know what? We didn't lose money. So we added another $100 into our bank. So I'm happy with that. You know, the work done. Yeah, there's better ways to make money. So that being said, the cold kitchen table worked out pretty good. We made some pretty good profit off of that. And the wire, you know, I got to be a little better on looking at pictures and then deciphering what's 10 gauge wire and what's not. Because that's what got me. There was a lot of wire in there that just went into that 65% recovery that, you know, according to the pictures, I was thinking it was 10 gauge wire. All right, so there you got 2 videos in one. I think we did all right. Hey, we made a profit on both of them. So we're gonna end this video right now, and we thank you for watching, and we've got a lot of scrap to get to the scrap yard so we can get paid. All right, until the next video, goodbye.